Hello again, I am Blunty, and that's me over there with the goggles on my face. What was once known by the codename Project Morpheus is now PlayStation VR, and as the straightforward new branding suggests, it's Sony's new PlayStation-based virtual reality system. And recently, as you most likely have deduced by now, I got to spend some time with it, about an hour or so actually, at PlayStation Aussieland's offices, being led through several different demos and games. Now, I'm not going to dwell much on the specific demos and games that I was shown because they weren't the point. They were just the gateway into exploring what the hardware does. Now, the hardware I'm wearing is still a prototype officially, and the final retail version, which doesn't yet have a set release date, although maybe it does, because I'm recording this just before Paris Games Week happens, where I'm told there's going to be a PlayStation VR related announcement, which they won't bloody tell me about while I'm making this video. But release should be sometime next year, so some things about it may and probably will change by the time you can spend money on one of your very own. But it is at a stage where Sony are happy to show it off to people, so the first thing I can tell you is, well, it works really nicely. The motion tracks very smoothly, slow movement, head whipping about, there's no lagginess, stuttering or motion blur, and not once in my time with it on my face did I ever feel dizzy or disoriented or sick, which is a problem I have had with some VR units in the past, especially for example Google's Cardboard VR thing, which I tried with several different phones and whatever I was using it always made me feel motion sick. The PlayStation VR experience, however, was absolutely comfortable end to end. Now, the headset looks pretty bulky, sure, but it was surprisingly well balanced and well fitted. I should have expected much. This is not the first head-mounted display Sony have built, it's just the first one with like motion tracking and stuff in it. It sealed out all outside light nicely with very soft and comfortable padding. It sat well on my head, comfortable and stable, without feeling sort of tight, and it didn't feel like it added an awkward kind of heft or inertia to how I wanted to move my head around. I had several experiences. Some were passive and viewer only, like the shark cave dive experience thingy, which I really quite enjoyed. It was a bit odd in the parts where the cage was moving or bouncing around or shaking or falling, and I, of course, wasn't, standing on a nice solid floor as I was. But it was a very pretty and enjoyable experience, and I got to flip off a big angry shark. So that's one for the bucket list, I guess. Another experience was with the standard DualShock 4 controller, and others were of course with the PlayStation Move controllers, which I quite liked when they first came out a few years back. Pity they never really caught on with developers, so the library of games for them is, well, not good. But the hardware itself I already knew was solid, and so their performance was nice and predictable. I do have to tell you though, I did have some issues while using the Move controllers, however it was through no fault of their own. It was for two different reasons that I had issues. The first time it got awkward was when I was handed the controllers to the wrong hands. I had the right hand controller put in my left mitt and the left wand put in my right hand, and that made the game really quite hilariously wibbly. Especially when I tried to pick up a gun and load it. It did very bad things to the game and horrible things to my brain. I could not figure out what was going on. But we reset, we put the controllers in the right hands, and all was glorious. The second time things got a bit wacky with the Move controllers was because the PlayStation camera, which of course tracks the Move controllers, slipped its tilt position on the top of the TV. See, it turns out it was being held there with some blue tack and an atheist's prayer, because the proper stand for it, which would have held it nice and solidly in place, had gone missing after they had taken it to a local expo a few days prior to my time with it. But outside of that, no worries. I asked if the Move controllers would be the standard mode of input for the PlayStation VR, as they're the obvious choice really, but I got no straight answer, no matter how many times I rephrased the question. It may wind up being a mix between DualShock 4 and Move controllers, which I'm absolutely okay with. I mean, that light on the DualShock 4, which I hate so much because it's just an unnecessary drain on the battery which frustrates me, it was put there precisely for use with the PlayStation VR. It does exist for a good reason, they just didn't tell us about it in the beginning. But my guess, and it is just a guess, is that they'll be redesigning the Move controllers to work better with an eyes-free experience, because of course with the headset on you can't actually see the buttons on the controller, and some of them do sit flush with the body, which is obviously an issue. But the triggers worked perfectly, and that's all I needed for the stuff that I was playing. Outside of the comedy human errors though, I was very impressed. Things were crisp and clear and blur-free, movement was perfectly tracked, and it all felt very natural. And although it's a 1080p image inside the goggles, it didn't present as particularly low res or screen dory or anything. There was a little chromatic aberration and distortion at the very edges of the peripheral field of view, but you only really see that if you went looking for it, which I did because I wanted to see whether it was there. The central image, where stuff actually happens, when your eyes sit most of the time, was nice and rich and crystal clear. You may also notice that the B-roll gameplay footage I'm showing you here doesn't quite reach the edges of a normal 1080p frame. Turns out they cheat a bit. They steal some pixels from the sides to squeeze out a little bit of extra processing power for the rest. But the thing is, you never really notice it inside of the headset. Cheeky though. Clever, but cheeky. Speaking of the field of view, by the way, it's not super wide. It certainly feels like you're looking through a pair of diving goggles or something into the game world, but they're not sort of claustrophobically small either. It doesn't feel tight. It doesn't feel like you're squinting through a window or anything like that. And you do adapt to the lack of complete wide peripheral vision very quickly. The positional audio was wonderful too. I could easily pinpoint quite precisely where the sound was coming from, and I would turn to face it and there would be the thing making the sound. All quite instinctively. Motion-tracked positional audio isn't as discussed as other technologies and VR experiences have been, but it is crazy vital to making your brain believe you're in a virtual environment, and it needs to work flawlessly. And this one does, so hooray! And indeed, I did find myself falling into the game experiences. There was a game demo I played that required ducking behind a desk, which of course isn't actually there, for cover while under fire and to avoid detection by patrolling guards and whatnot. And another part where, while shooting out of a moving car, which was my favourite game demo by the way, it was just mountains of fun and I wanted to play it again but we didn't have time, and I was, without thinking about it, leaning out to shoot around the door pillars and the driver. And this game also had a really fun gun loading mechanic where you had to actually pick up ammo clips with one hand and slam them into the bottom of the gun, by very literally doing that exact motion with the Move controllers. Then I started to play around a bit. I threw a couple of clips at the driver's head. Sadly, this wasn't one of those fun physics demo games, so he didn't react at all. Not even when I tried to slap him, unfortunately. But I tried. Anyway, there was a big bag of ammo, and what I did was grab a few clips from it and set them out on the car's dashboard so I could get to them faster to reload without looking down at the bag. And it all just kind of worked wonderfully naturally. There was no goofy physics issues, no contrived mechanics for reloading or getting ammo or anything, just natural movement. Grab, move, drop, grab, load. You could just do it all without having to think about it. And that is the key to this whole VR thing. It has to feel natural. You're not supposed to be thinking about button combos or weapon selection menus. You just kind of want to sink into a world and experience it and let your instinct for natural human movement take over. So when you, say, switch weapons, you literally pick up a different weapon. And the PlayStation VR is the first VR experience I've had where I felt that happening properly. But the thing I love most about it is perhaps the most important thing about it, and the thing that sets it so far apart from the competitor products. Google's Cardboard and the other mobile phone-based headset gimmicks, for example, are little more than a way to get people playing with VR in a very cheap and accessible way. But it is an experiment. It's a toy at best. Then you've got the Oculus, which screw them because they sold out to the evil Facebook empire of sleazy evil creeps, and I won't be touching an Oculus ever again because of that. And then you've got the much more friendly Valve VR and HTC Vive combo punch. But they, and the Oculus for that matter, are all PC based, and while HTC's Vive is especially interesting on a technological level, it's really not that practical for normal person home use. And while their partnership with Valve's Steam products will help ensure that their gaming experiences should be solid and well focused, the issue with all of this is, well, it's the PC experience. It's complicated, more complicated than consoles anyway, just like with normal PC gaming. Everyone's experience will be just a little bit different, potentially detrimentally so. You have to think about a lot of stuff. Do you have a powerful enough GPU? Do you have enough system memory? A fast enough CPU? The right combination of hardware and software? There's a lot of variables to account for in the experience. Get it right, and it could be glorious, like the higher-end PC gaming experience is. But the barrier to entry and potential complexity is high, and to some, that's just too intimidating. PlayStation VR, however, and this is what I love, well, it's just like the PlayStation itself. It's a console experience. It's a box. You buy it, it has everything you need, you plug it into the PS4, and it just bloody works. And it will work exactly the same for every last person who buys one. For game devs, it'll have the same advantages as the consoles already do: a set hardware target, a known quantity, something standardized, reliable, something that can be much easier to optimize for. And it's that which has me more excited for the PlayStation VR experience than any other virtual reality system steaming towards retail shelves right now. Technically speaking, it is an add-on for an already 2-year established gaming console, and historically, pretty much every other time this has been tried, the market has responded with, well, indifference quite often, which has led to failure of the product. The Sega CD, the Sega 32X, the Wii Motion Plus add-on, and all the way through a whole bunch of stuff just like that, all the way through to the Kinect and the PlayStation Eye, and even the PlayStation Move, actually, which is a nice product. It's solid hardware, but it's suffered from poor adoption on both sides. Consumers really didn't pick it up that much, and the software library was limited, and it was just an endless feedback loop of, well, they're not buying it, so we're not making for it. Oh, well, nobody's making for it, so we're not buying it. There is a risk here that PlayStation VR may join what is a long list of attempts to staple on, sometimes very impressive accessories, to existing consoles. But personally, and quite honestly, this is the first time I have ever been really, honestly enthusiastic about such an add-on product. Especially now, after having gone hands-on, or I guess heads-on, or eyes-in with the product. It works. It's easy, and so long as it gets the software support it needs, and clear marketing, and a price people are willing to pay, I'm hopeful that it could be a really good place for a simple, clean, fuss-free, and well-supported virtual reality gaming experience. So, that's what I think. Time for you guys to sound off. What do you think? What are your hopes for VR going forward? Valve or PlayStation? I consider these two the industry leaders right now. It's going to be one of these guys, or both of these guys, hopefully. Valve on the PC side, PlayStation on the console side. It'd be great for the VR industry as a whole if both did really well. Do you think VR will finally catch on? I mean, this is like the third time there's been a real push for it to be a mainstream consumer product. But you know what? This is probably the first time the hardware is actually up to the task of really delivering a good experience. And I guess lastly, what PlayStation properties do you think would make for good VR experiences? Keep in mind, you can't just port across existing games to VR and expect them to work. VR games really have to be designed for VR for them to work really, really well. But I'm wondering if PlayStation Home will make an amusing and triumphant return. That thing always seemed like it wanted to be a virtual reality experience anyway. I think it can actually work this time around. But hopefully if it does come back to VR land, it won't be filled with quite so many lame ads and promo crap. How about a Little Big Planet game where you pick up and place an object for your level designs on a virtual reality chalkboard or desktop or something? You could literally build a Little Big Planet level as if you were like building with Lego pieces or something. It'd be awesome. How about a first-person Uncharted adventure, exploring a jungle island and shooting and swinging precariously across cavernous... Well, actually, you know what? Never mind about Uncharted. Might be a little bit too intense, perhaps. So please, drop the comment bombs, do the button thing. I'm still Blunty, I'm still thanking you for watching, and I will catch you next time.
We're all wondering if you know where she is. I'm gonna make you into a little piece of I don't give a monkey's what Frank thinks about you. I don't trust you. And you know why? Because there's only two people that could have taken Serena today. You or me. And it weren't me. Now you tell me where sake. Frank.
Hey Jeremy man, what's up? It's Blunty. Listen, the guys down at Human Resources wanted me to have a little chat to you about your potty mouth. Now, I'm not saying you can't swear. You know, I love a good swear myself, God darn it. It's just, you know, it's the workplace. There's rules. I hate them too. But, you know, maybe for me, mate, just try and cut back on the swearing a little bit. Good lad. Now, do one more thing for me. Just hold up the phone like a dainty princess.
It's your lucky day.